USS Fiske was a Gearing-class destroyer of the United States Navy, the second Navy ship named for Rear Admiral Bradley A. Fiske, inventor of the stadiometer and the aerial torpedo. Fiske was launched on 8 September 1945 by Bath Iron Works, Bath, Maine, sponsored by Mrs. F. E. Ribbentrop, and commissioned on 28 November 1945. Commander C. H. Smith in command. Service history. Joining the Atlantic Fleet, Fiske served as an engineering school ship for Destroyer Force Atlantic out of Portland, Maine, and made 3 cruises to the Mediterranean for duty with the 6th Fleet from her home port at Newport, Rhode Island, prior to the outbreak of the Korean War. In addition, she took part in the regular schedule of training operations along the East Coast and in the Caribbean, where in 1948 she rescued 10 men from a small coastal freighter sinking in the Windward Passage. On 3 January 1951, Fiske sailed from Newport for the Panama Canal and the Far East, reporting on 12 February to the 7th Fleet at Sasebo, Japan for duty in the Korean War. Along with screening carrier task forces, she patrolled off Korea, joined in bombarding shore targets, and escorted shipping from Japan to the action areas. Sailing westward for home, she arrived at Newport from her round-the-world cruise on 8 August 1951. Fiske was decommissioned on 1 April 1952 for conversion to a radar picket destroyer, and accordingly reclassified DD-842 on 18 July 1952. Recommissioned 25 November 1952, Fiske trained with her new equipment in preparation for her participation in the fall of 1953 in NATO Operation Mariner, which took her north of the Arctic Circle. In 1954 she resumed her annual tours of duty in the Mediterranean, serving the carrier task forces of the 6th Fleet as radar picket. Her training operations when assigned to the 2nd Fleet for duty in the Western Atlantic and Caribbean included special work in development of anti-submarine warfare and air defense. Homeported at Mayport, Florida, from August 1960, Fiske joined in NATO exercises north of the Arctic Circle in the fall of 1960, and at the close of the year, sailed for patrol duty in the Caribbean. In October 1962, Fiske returned to Mayport from the Canary Islands, where she had positioned herself for astronaut splashdown. On the evening of her arrival back home, and without a full crew, she was ordered to rendezvous with the Enterprise in the Windward Passage as the Soviets were challenging the United States in the Cuban Missile Crisis. DD-842 then joined the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean Sea in February 1963. Following this deployment, another change of home port to Newport, Rhode Island, took place. Fiske's classification reverted to DD-842 on 1 April 1964. Under the command of CDR John R. Ewing, Fiske underwent a fleet rehabilitation and modernization at Brooklyn Navy Yard during 1964. Among other things, Fiske's second forward gun mount, Mount 52, was removed, and replaced by a pair of triple-mount Mark Chapter 32 torpedo tubes. The superstructure was replaced and an anti-submarine rocket launcher and launch station was installed between the funnels on the O1 level. After Stack 2, the superstructure was modified to include a magazine-fit torpedoes, ASROC rockets and warheads, and depth charges for the dash system, and a hangar starboard side O1 level for the 2 dash helos. After the superstructure, the remainder of the O1 level was flight deck. Trials began in December 1964 with a period of shakedown cruises between yard visits with several dry dock periods. In the late winter of 1965, Fiske underwent operational readiness inspection at at Guantanamo Bay Naval Station, Cuba. After successful completion, she returned to her home port, and the rest of DD-842 at Newport Naval Station, Rhode Island. On Mother's Day, 1965, all leaves and liberties were cancelled and an emergency recall was sent out for immediate return to the ship. Fiske got underway about 03:00 Monday morning, and headed south for the Dominican Republic, where a civil war had broken out. Fiske spent approximately 1 month patrolling the entrance to Santo Domingo Harbor, earning the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal for her efforts. Back in Newport, routine sea periods on a short period detached the Norfolk Naval Station for duty as escort to the newly commissioned America, undergoing sea trials during the late summer of 1965. A relaxed leave and liberty policy was the rule for the next 6 months, as crew changes were made prior to the ACGC squadron deploying to Vietnam. On the 19th of January 1966, Fiske cast off all lines and shifted colors as she got underway for Vietnam, in company with DD-12 comprising DD-121, Davis, Basilone, Fiske, and Dias, and DD-122, Richard E. Krause, Massey, Fred T. Berry, and Stickle. Fiske sailed south into the Caribbean and through the Gulf of Mexico, transients the Panama Canal on the 25th of January. DD-12 then visited San Diego Naval Station for approximately 8 hours on the 5th of February to pick up equipment, then got underway for Hawaii. On the 10th of February 1966, Fiske and Dias participated in the rescue of the pilot of a small plane that ran out of fuel on the way to Hawaii. The pilot ditched and was picked up by Dias. On the 11th of February, the squadron moored at Pearl Harbor Naval Station, Hawaii. After 5 days in Hawaii, DD-12 got underway for the Philippine Islands, crossing the international dateline on the 18th of February. As the cruise entered the realm of the Golden Dragon, Fiske and the rest of ACGC squadron rounded the northern islands of the Philippine archipelago on the 27th of February, and made port at Subic Bay Naval Station, Republic of the Philippines, on the 28th of February. On the 11th of March, Fiske was underway for her first war patrol. Fiske entered the combat zone on the 12th of March, and the crew qualified on the 13th of March for an income tax exemption and the Vietnam Service Medal. On the 18th of March, the crew qualified for hostile fire pay. The remainder of March 1966 was spent as escort and plane guard for the Ranger and the Enterprise-65 on Yankee Station off the 1st Corps operational area. Detached from escort duties on the 1st of April, Fiske entered the Gulf of Tonkin for duty as a search and rescue ship, answering the first SAR call on the 2nd of April, an operation involving a pilot and a rescue helicopter from Enterprise. Though unable to assist, the helicopter with pilot aboard cleared North Vietnamese airspace en route to the Enterprise. On the morning of the 4th of April, while engaged in a SAR patrol, Fiske came under fire from a North Vietnamese heavy shore battery. Unable to locate the battery, which was apparently masked behind some coastal hills, Fiske turned away and resumed her patrol. Fiske returned to Subic Bay, where, on the 21st of April, a change of command ceremony was held, with CDR William McKinley, USN, relieving Captain Ewing. After some poor time in Subic Bay, Fiske was underway once again for another war patrol. She joined the Hancock on the 26th of April, and operated with her for the next 10 days, with 2 short trips into the Gulf of Tonkin for SAR duty. Leaving Hancock, Fiske then rejoined Ranger, and escorted her to Yokosuka Naval Station, Japan, arriving on the 12th of May, and not departing until the 25th of May for her 3rd war patrol due to casualties to the Ranger and to the John A. Bull. She entered the combat zone on the 28th of May. On the 30th of May, Fiske took up duty outside the combat zone as an anti-air warfare picket ship. On the 6th of June, Fiske relieved Davis's of naval gunfire support duties and escorted a truck convoy along the coast highway approximately 50 miles south to Da Nang, on her 4th war patrol. By the 10th of June, Fiske was moored for 4 days of liberty in Hong Kong, British Crown Colony. Departing for her 5th war patrol on the 14th of June, Fiske arrived off Quang Ngai Province for NGFS duty the next day. She fired 119 rounds of 5-inch, 38 caliber ammunition at 4 target areas, destroying 18 structures, damaging trenches and 10 other structures. The next day found Fiske on NGFS station off Da Nang, firing 57 rounds at 4 target areas, including Viet Cong caves, assembly areas, and 1 VC observation post. During a second mission that day, an ammunition dump on a hilltop was struck by Fiske's shells, which exploded the top of the hill. The 17th of June found the Fiske supporting the 2nd Battalion, 4th Division, U.S. Marines in Operation Dodge, in the area of the ancient Vietnamese capital of Hue. During the next 4 days of Operation Dodge, Fiske fired night illumination missions. Subsequently, Fiske was detached and ordered south to the 3rd Corps operational area for a mission requiring Fiske to transit up the Mekong River nearly to Saigon. The mission was cancelled at the last minute, but not before some hands witnessed nighttime Arclight B-52 raids, and PUF firing its Gatling guns from the air to the ground in the area of the Mekong River Delta. After an 8-day port call to Koh Siong, Formosa, Fiske returned to Subic Bay on the 5th of July. Departing Subic Bay on the 6th, Fiske entered the combat zone for the 6th and final war patrol, a short stint as a part of Operation Market Time. Departing the combat zone later the same day, Fiske and the rest of the ships of Disron 12 began the journey home. On the 8th of July, the Polywogs took over the ship, but revenge was taken the very next day, as Fiske crossed the equator at longitude 106 degrees 27 minutes east, in the Singapore Strait. The segment of the crew that heretofore had never crossed the equator received justice from those who had, the shellbacks, and were mercifully, and most ceremonially converted from Polywogs to shellbacks, after suffering the pains and torments required when entering the realm of King Neptune himself. Disron 12 headed west with stops at Penang, Malaysia, then Kochi, India, and Aden Protectorate, British Crown Colony, through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Entering the Mediterranean Sea, she anchored in the port of Piraeus, Greece, the port of Athens. 2 more stops in early August, at Barcelona, Spain on the 4th for 3 days, and Gibraltar, British Crown Colony on the 9th for 1 day. Fiske entered the Atlantic Ocean, last seen in late January, and returned to the welcoming bands and families on the pier at Newport on the 17th of August. During the cruise, the Fiske circumnavigated the world, steaming over 54,000 miles. She spent 210 days away from home port, 146 of which were at sea. 2 days were spent transients the 2 canals, Panama and Suez. Fiske replenished underway on 55 occasions, from oilers, refrigerator ships, and cargo and ammunition ships, and even completed an UNRUP triple play, receiving oil, ammunition, and supplies all at one time from the New Sacramento. Fiske then settled into her routine at Newport for a well-deserved rest, although an all too short one. In May 1967, Fiske departed Newport, Rhode Island, for an extended Mediterranean cruise. The first stop along the way was a routine service stop at Gibraltar. Next came Malta for Liberty Call. Due to an escalating situation between Egypt and Israel over control of the Suez Canal, Fiske was ordered to traverse the Suez Canal. After a day in port, said she formed up with the other ships, including the DD-842, for the trip through the Suez Canal. This occurred at the beginning of the Six-Day War between Egypt and Israel. The purpose of Fiske's presence was to protect U.S. shipping interests in the area, assigned to monitor all ship traffic into and out of the Persian Gulf. In some cases boarding these ships as necessary. On occasion the ship was called upon to perform rescue missions when ships ran into trouble, as in one case when a freighter ran aground. Fiske remained in the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, and Strait of Hormuz areas until August. Liberty ports of call were unusual for U.S. warships. They included Djibouti, French Somaliland, Massawa, Ethiopia, Bahrain, Kag Island, Madagascar, Diego Suarez, and Mombasa, Kenya. Fiske treated Massawa as her home port, away from home. The plan for Fiske to return to Newport was to include a stop at Caracas, Venezuela. These plans were quickly changed when the carrier Forrestal suffered numerous explosions and fires on 29 July 1967 while operating in Vietnam. New orders were for Fiske to rendezvous with Forrestal off the coast of South Africa and provide an escort for her to Mayport, Florida. Fiske finally returned to Newport, Rhode Island, in September 1967. In October 1967, CDR James S. Brunson assumed command. After a few months, Fiske was sent to Boston Naval Shipyard for a complete overhaul. She remained in the yards until May-June 1968. Late summer she again deployed for another Mediterranean cruise, returning early in 1969. Fiske completed a 6-month Middle East cruise, July 1973, to her home port Newport, Rhode Island. She was then reassigned to the Navy Reserve Force, and her home port moved to the Military Ocean Terminal, Bayonne, New Jersey. Fiske made many reserve training weekend cruises from 1973 to 1976, including a 3-month Mediterranean cruise in 1974. Some ports visited were Naples, Barcelona, Malaga, and Rota. She was moored in Bayonne during the bicentennial tall ships. Fiske was overhauled again in 1976 and remained in the Naval Reserve Force, stationed at Bayonne, New Jersey, transferred to Turkey on 5 June 1980. Fiske was stricken from the U.S. Naval Vessel Register on 6 August 1987. TCG Bayli Pasha. The ship served in the Turkish Navy as TCG Bayli Pasha, named after Piyale Pasha. The ship was heavily damaged when she ran aground in late 1996. She was scrapped in 1999. In popular culture, the USS Fiske is shown in X-Men First Class, where a crewman is recording the action with a 8mm camera. Awards: Navy Occupation Service Medal for service in Italian waters in 1946 and 1947. 2 Battle Stars for Korean War service, Navy Expeditionary Medal and the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal for service with TF-135 during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. National Defense Service Medal for service after December 1960. Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal for service in the Dominican Republic in May 1965. 2 Vietnam Service Medals for service off the coast of Vietnam in 1966 during 2 campaigns. Vietnam Counter-Offensive 2, the 1st of July 1966 to the 31st of May 1967. Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross Unit Citation with Palm.